Report of the Secretary General of the OSCE Parliamentary Assembly, Mr. Roberto Montella.
Thank you very much, Madam President. And let me also thank Sarkis and Armenia for organizing this meeting here in a very short time. I hope it doesn't become the practice that we always do it in the short time. Also last year, Poland managed to organize it in a very short time. I'd like to thank you, your team, and of course Gustavo and our conference team for putting this together in a...
Excuse me, we can't hear you. Sorry, we cannot hear the Secretary General.
Sorry. Yeah? Okay. Just so that I see them better. So I hope this doesn't become a practice that we have to organize this meeting in a short time, but I know that Dublin has already committed for next year, and there are countries who are already committed for in the years ahead. Thank you, Gustavo, and the conference team for putting this together in a short time. I think the venue is excellent, the seat is beautiful, so I hope that we'll have 3 days to do very good work here. I'd like to thank you, Madam President, for your leadership, for being very busy in these few months since you became President. You've been busy on all the dossiers. As soon as we started your presidency, you went to Vienna on a climate change dossier, but you've been active on South Caucasus, on Central Asia. You have been very active on Ukraine by leading the committee on Ukraine and convening it a couple of times. And immediately after this meeting, we will have another meeting on the parliamentary support team for Ukraine. So thank you very much for your leadership on that. My report is written, was distributed already. It's only a report from the activities of the Secretariat and the Assembly since July to now. I will not go through the entire report and read it out to you because you have a chance to read it. I'll just bring out some few highlights from the report. We've just completed a regional tour. This is the first time, Madam President, that the President of the OSCE Parliamentary Assembly does the 3 countries in one go as you've done. It was probably tiring for you, but it was very instructive for us. I will not like to be too excessively optimistic, but I think what you have heard from the leadership both in Azerbaijan and yesterday here in Armenia sounds like let's say, a change of narratives from what we've heard from many years in the Parliamentary Assembly. It looks like things are improving. It looks like there is a viable way for peace in this region. We certainly hope that there will be enough political leadership and political will to get to this peace. And also I would like to thank also Georgia for hosting us in Tbilisi and also for offering good offices to allow also the delegations to talk to each other. And we will see also what could be the parliamentary component in the future of these rapprochements, if we could talk about it. The Ministerial Council of the OSCE will be in 10 days, hosted by colleagues in Skopje. The OSCE, as it's mentioned by Farah Karimi, is indeed in a very difficult situation. At present, the discussions in Vienna and in the capitals give us a picture where we do not know who will be the chair of the organization next year. And this organization without a chair cannot function because you need a chair to convene meetings, to carry out the agenda of the Assembly. So the chair for next year is not decided yet, and I remind you that in the OSCE governmental side of this, the governmental branch of the organization, they operate by consensus. So you need to have all the countries agreeing on every point. So first you have to have consensus on who will be the chair for next year. We have a chair in 2025, it will be Finland. And I actually welcome already your role, Madam President, in working together with the Finnish delegation, as well as your role in facilitating also through your good offices, good discussions in trying to find consensus on the chair for next year. There's need to be a consensus also on who will lead the heads of institutions of the OSCE, the independent institution of the ODIHR, the freedom of the media, the High Commissioner for National Minorities, and my colleague, the Secretary General of the governmental side. There is a risk that on the 1st of December, on the 7th of December, I think, when the mandate expires, we will have no office holders. The paradox would be that the only people who have a mandate in this organization entirely will be you, Madam President, from a political and me from an administrative point of view. So we certainly hope that the organization will find consensus next week. It requires, of course, talking to all the participating states of the OSCE, and of course there is one particularly participating state who has not been very cooperative, but of course we need to talk to also that, the Russian Federation, in order to make sure that we find consensus on all these points, as well as the budget of the organization. Unlike the governmental side of the organization, the OSCE Parliamentary Assembly, as you can see, is very healthy. You've had an excellent meeting in Vancouver, and here I'd like to again thank Eddie Fry and the Canadian delegation for hosting us there. We had a great meeting. We've had many resolutions. We've had our reports. We have a Vancouver declaration. So we are very lively and very much alive as a parliamentary assembly. And this is because of our, let's say, inevitable comparative advantage, which is that we vote our political declaration by majority. And I think we have to be always appreciative of the fact that we can function because we can continue our work, we can decide where we have our meetings, we can pass our resolution by simply using the rule of majority and not the consensus. And therefore, I also hope that in this Parliamentary Assembly we do not bring big political issues in the only venue where we vote by consensus, which is the Standing Committee, which is mainly to discuss administrative issues, as you've seen on the budget, on other issues. I think political issues, big political decisions should be discussed and voted on in the committees or in the plenaries, but not in the Standing Committee. Otherwise, we will also have the same kind of difficulties that the governmental side has, because we will be subject to the consensus rule also here in the Parliamentary Assembly. We had on the election observation missions, we've had one recent elections in Poland. I'd like to thank also the Polish delegation for welcoming our delegation. We have a busy agenda of elections, as was mentioned. We will have Serbia in December, I think North Macedonia sometimes in the spring, and then there are elections, of course, in Russia, in Belarus, and of course, I don't think we will observe the elections in Russia. The Bureau will consider if there is ground to do a possible observation mission in Belarus, but this is again for you, Madam President, and the Bureau to have that discussion. And of course, we have a busy agenda next year with elections in Georgia, in the United States, after the summer break. The audit, I think this was an important thing that happened from July to now. I welcome the Treasurer and the President's leadership in this. You had a very good meeting in Copenhagen. We had a very good meeting with the auditor. I would like to thank the Lithuanian delegation and those who were behind this initiative to increase transparency. I think this is very good for the Assembly. It just strengthens us. I look forward. The auditors have already started to work from the 1st of October. They should conclude their work sometimes early January, and a preliminary report will be given to the Treasurer and to the President and then presented in Vienna. We look forward for the recommendations that will come out of the audit, also to help us kind of strengthen administrative or internal functioning. And I think this is very good that it's also watched with close eyes through the political leadership, and Treasurer Buzzer and you, Madam President, have constant contact with the auditor, and I think we look forward for a good outcome of this. On this ground also, Mr. Pritchard, you mentioned the issue of increased transparency. Also, you referred to the United Nations and the post table that is presented. I think indeed this is very important. I actually, at the Vancouver report, if you look at but we can maybe do this regularly, there is indeed a staff table in the line with what the OSCE and the UN does, and you can see the scales of how many human resources are in which category. But I think that what you say is correct. I mean, aiming at UN salary scales, or I think we have to do, as Mr. Cole says, in the years and not immediately, because it will be a dramatic increase of resources. And we've heard from the French delegation there are not these resources, or there is not appetite for this. So we have to be creative also within the current budget. But I think we have to aim at having at least some benchmark, be it the Council of Europe, be it the OSCE, be it the UN, and then say, okay, but given the limited resources that we have, this is in principle what it should be, but it is that minus 40%, minus 60%. But at least we have a clear benchmark so that there is no arbitrarity. That's, I think we have to introduce the concept of the transparent concept that these salaries have to be regulated by some criteria. So I don't know if a director of an office or the director of the election department is a P5 position, but we do not have resources to pay that person a P5 salary. We say you are in allegedly P5 position, but given the short resources we have, you will get that position minus 30, 40%, depending on the resources that we have available years to years. So it's a kind of starting a discussion together with the auditor on a principle that we need to introduce, indeed to increase transparency on this.
Sorry, Secretary General, forgive me. Can I just say, through you, Madam President, can I ask everybody, hands up, who cannot hear very well what's being said? Any hands up? Yeah. Let's be honest, if you want to hear, that's what we're here to listen and learn. So
I'll speak up, I'll speak up.
No, it's not you, it's also these are very important. So can we ask our colleagues here in Armenia, can we pump up the volume, please?
Okay. I thought I was mumbling. Okay, it's not me. Thank you. Maybe I speak too long, I don't mumble. Can I go? Okay. This also leads me to another discussion, which is, we will actually talk about the rules in the next agenda item. I think we are at a conjunction where at some point, and Madam President, you mentioned this idea, we should look a little bit at our assembly, where we are, our posture, what we should do. Some call it a review of our rules. I think the rules should follow first a political vision that the leadership wants to give to this assembly. We have operated now for 30 years on the assumption that we have 3 statutory meetings, we do some elections, we do some visits, and many of these things, by the way, are not in our rules. And election observation missions is not contemplated by our rules, or some committees that we have created are some not contemplated by our rules. So I think we should, I think where we are, it's very good. We have created some practices. I think we should discuss at the political level what we should do in the future. Should we have more statutory meeting, less, more targeted visit, be more operative when a crisis happens, be right there on the spot? I mean, a new political vision that first the political leadership should elaborate, and once that is done, and I would say you will probably establish an ad hoc committee or a group that reflects on this, a group of eminent people, let's say, or experienced people, then we would approve this new constitution of the OSCE. The rules will, of course, be in line with that in order to make us more operational, and then we will enter into this new phase. But meanwhile, we're already operating in a new hybrid situation where we do things that are maybe not contemplated by our rules, but that are anyway the wish of the members. And I would say on a more personal note at the end of my statement, Madam President, of course I welcome any questions. I'd like to thank you. I'd like to thank Yerevan for having created a more, let's say, constructive climate in the Assembly. I think I can feel very positive vibes in this group. So I think we need to continue like this, and thank you very much for your leadership. Thank you.